Exhausting toxic partisanship, left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we the people rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin.
Heck yeah,
I'm here.
So,
I'm ready for this conversation.
yeah, we talked about doing the World Economic Forum stuff for a while. It gets brought up in conversation. So it's
Frazzled
like, all right,
drip, drinking Malthusians,
We're-
getting together with billions of dollars. I mean, that's what they are, man.
yeah, you're all right. Yeah. You
I
had
went
to
right
explain
for
that term to me before, like what the heck it was. I
Yeah.
had no idea. Okay, it's already going to get our video banned. Talking about apparently making references to drinking the blood of children and whatnot. Like, so
Terrified children, Kevin.
right, whatever it is. So yeah, this starting off great. But we're going to talk about, like, because as I've researched them and heard about their stuff, like I view them somewhere in between, like, weird techno optimist navel gazers to like corporatist crony types. Like most of my view about them is that, and stuff that is sometimes well-meaning, sometimes useless, sometimes maybe nefarious. Although again, most of my worldview is like most of these people probably mean well, but you can mean well and still do evil.
You give these jokers the benefit of the doubt, right? There's a bunch of billionaires there that meet up with heads of state from all over the world, and they hand out money, and they buy like legislative concepts. Like, that's always my opinion. That's it. I think history proves that government sells regulations to big business to punish the little guy. And to me, on some level, Davos is that open secret. That's where they go to do it.
Right.
One of the places they go to do it. What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, no, they meet together, they talk about stuff. And again, some of it just depends on how truthful you think they're being in terms of like, well, we need to meet together to solve significant problems, and talking between heads of state and corporations is useful to that end, which in some regards it could be. It just, again, it depends. The devil's in the details there. It depends on like how that gets done, whether or not they're actually solving problems, and whether or not solving those problems happens to, again, coincide with enriching themselves, which I don't have a problem with them in and of itself. Not the heads of state. I don't like that. But the corporations make money and it makes people better off. Great. Fine. I don't care. Like, I am totally fine with that. It's just if it doesn't, it ends up being rent seeking, nonsense that I have a problem with. And that's, again, some of what kind of comes out of these types of events, and eventually I do want to get to the Great Reset stuff, like what it actually is, because I legit thought it was like a random like conspiracy theory. I was like, what are these internet weirdos talking about?
I literally
thought
thought
a whole book on
Klaus Schwab was some sort of joke. Like, and then I do a little research, and in 1971 he founded the World Economic Forum.
Yeah,
I think he's a bit of a showman. All right, I'm going to be honest with you.
Sure.
Like, is he actually evil, or does he just dress the part? I mean, is he actually like, I think that
like he fits very nicely into like the stereotype of like American movie
man.
villains, right? Like,
you do kind of want to punch
German. Is he German or Swiss? I don't even remember.
He's German.
Yeah,
he's a German. He was a German professor who was teaching engineering, and decided he would, hang out with some people and have some conversations, and it actually rapidly from 1971 into 1972 turned into something kind of growing, kind of like people wanted to participate, and it's grown throughout the years. Like they all right, so they charge a lot of money, Kevin. Like, if you want just to go visit and hang out, your admission fee, $20K, bud. $20K to go hang out.
Hey, listen, you're about to forgive my student loans. I'm going to be $20K richer
I know.
So
Congratulations, bud. I'm so happy for you.
thank
Don't
you,
give me.
Tim. You're
We should
so
save that for
generous.
later if we want to talk about the World
I
Economic
know.
Forum, because I will go down this road in a heartbeat.
Yeah, no, we should we'll stay focused on the topic at
Yeah,
hand.
don't distract me,
But
Kevin. Not yet.
so yeah, again, like groups of people getting together and talking about solving problems, again, not in and of itself an issue. I get a little skeeved out when heads of state, particularly like heads of like really nasty states like Saudi Arabia, and they get to go and pal around with these folks, like their government might actually be evil, like it's a bad country. Like,
Yeah, and China's been there a bunch of
yeah,
times, and anytime you invite China, you have to ignore their human rights violations and let them lecture everyone from a point of virtuous social, interaction. You have to accept their what they say they are, and you cannot talk about what they really have done. So China's been there.
right.
North Korea has been there.
Yeah.
North
And
Korea's
again,
been invited and uninvited several times over the years, as you
yeah,
might
and it's
imagine.
again, it's one of those things like, okay, again, some of the biggest impactful countries, companies in the world, like Saudi Aramco, like it is a big impactful company, and like it's absolutely having a major impact on like the state of the world, whether it's oil prices or climate change or whatever. Okay, so do you ignore them, or do you invite them to a table and ask them to be part of the solution, right? Like, yeah, that's a
Sure.
thing that
Okay.
on an international relations level you have to talk about. Same with China, same with like India.
Right.
There's a lot of pollution that they do. There's a lot of
Okay,
like
but
terrible
right,
stuff that they
China
do.
got
Do you bring
invited.
them in to be part of the solution, or do you fight them? It's
Right, China got to lecture the world about how they are economically responsible, that they're environmentally responsible, and that any kind of pushback against them will, limit opportunity for the world. That's what they get to say at Davos,
yeah,
and people buy that. And look, the Chinese are famous for handing out millions of dollars, like in bags of cash, to people that they think can help their goals. I have a buddy
yeah.
that got well, not a buddy, a former boss got like $15 million from them to help design baseball fields. Like, I'm
Wow,
not kidding. It's a
wild.
real thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I believe it.
They
um,
throw cash around to people that like big time.
yeah. Well, so is the American government.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I know
we don't
that
do it
is what
like
about it,
that.
but
Right.
like I said, it's not about that. So, well, let's talk about some of the substance of it, right? Like, again, what are they doing? What are they advocating for? Um, and one of the first things I looked up is like, because I hear a bunch of folks being like, World Economic Forum, Great Reset. Again, what's the Great Reset? Let's start with that, right? Like,
Right.
what was that? They weren't they weren't kind of the first ones to use that term. Like Richard Florida had used it in a book in like 2010, but it is an actual book that they put out, the World Economic Forum put out, called The Great Reset, and it was in response to COVID. And they're like, hey, we're going to this is an opportunity to address economic inequality and restructure like how we approach work and remote work and technology and what they call the fourth industrial revolution, and all this stuff. And they want to push what they call like stakeholder capitalism, right? So
Right.
which is basically if that companies should care more about just more about than just profits. Gosh, they shouldn't just try to drive profits to shareholders. They should consider other stakeholders that their work impacts. So the community, the environment, social justice, economic inequality. That when companies are going out and doing stuff, that they should consider all of those other things, right? And
Kevin,
not
you know
just
what
worry
else
about
has 5
driving.
points, buddy? You know what else has 5 points? The Pentagon. I'm just
Are you
saying.
gonna start connecting the dots?
You just start connecting the dots and you get there where I'm at right now. These guys are Malthusians, right? They want to cut the population of the world by 50%. That's when they're talking about sustainability. All right, and guys, look, I'm going down a slightly paranoid conspiracy theory that they do nothing to discourage, okay? Because one of their focuses of the last 2 meetings is sustainable economic growth, which I think when I hear that coming from global leaders is Number one, the rich stay rich. Number two, sustainable economic growth is the rich stay rich. Number three, economic growth. Number three is that if the government can say yes or no, or encourage a special interest group or buy votes with their program, that's how we're supposed to do it. They just label it as sustainable economic growth. And so
Yeah, right.
this gives, to me, a lot of their literature and a lot of their goals looks like empowering government to, and guys, that's what stakeholdership is the government invests with people that are interested in providing services to a community. That's what they're talking about when they talk about stakeholders on some level. What do you think about that? Am I just a crazy
No, it's
conspiracy theorist?
that's not like it's a bit broader than that, but like you're not wrong. Like that's how it is. Like they view like local governments, local, state, national governments, and international bodies as like stakeholders as well, and that relationship is ripe for corruption and often does lead to like, okay, if we're serving what the government, whatever government, again, could be a good, wholesome Democratic, Republican government or a nasty, Chinese totalitarian government, like that's part of like they get to define like what the stakeholder impact on the community is. I mean, there's also things like the ESG scores, which we can get into in a little bit again, which a measure which isn't necessarily in and of itself bad. It's more of what do you choose to measure, how do you choose to weigh the impacts, and then what policy and or company governance decisions does that lead you to, and is that good or bad, right? Again,
Yeah.
it's
And look,
not
Kevin, when you're
bad or
55 and
yeah.
jaded from all the time giving these jokers and clowns the benefit of the doubt, and you see that the end result is they've enriched themselves and stolen my children's future, you're going to be looking like me. You're going to be wearing a ratty hat. You're going to be angry, and you're going to be like, because when we get collaborative with government and we give them the benefit of the doubt, I feel as though we're selling ourselves short. Okay. I'm a big fan of microeconomics, of individual liberty, of people interacting for their own good. And I think when we allow the government to dictate our actions, and when they hang out with clowns like Klaus Schwab, who, guys, he does it on purpose, man. He's a showman. This thing built because he's kind of funny and he plays that evil villain character pretty well. So I think that we can kind of, I want to be even more skeptical than I am when groups of rich oligarchs meet up with governments from around the world and they load up those DC-10s with their limousine, their $1 million limousine entourages, and they drop them in Davos and they drive to the summit. Like, guys, why? How do we minimize these corrupt clowns' power over us?
Oh, sure. It's hypocritical, and again, I'm not dismissing that. What I would say is, like, again, it's not necessarily a problem to me if companies and governments work together to solve like a particular problem, right? So it could be fine, like okay, if you have to solve a particular problem related to like flooding or something, for instance, right? And there are companies in a coastal area who have the ability to be able to mitigate the potential storm damage from flooding, and they work together and figure out like what does the government take care of? What do companies take care of? Private individuals, where are they going to contract companies to do to help make sure that homes, businesses, infrastructure isn't in danger from flooding, right? That's a public-private partnership that could, in theory, make sense, because and again, like the libertarian to me is like, people can just figure that out on their own. But like, I get that type of stuff happens when government is trying to figure out like, how do we protect our infrastructure, people who, aren't able to get out of harm's way, and, their own assets in situations where you're facing like extreme weather situations, which again, because of stuff like that, both corporations figuring that stuff out, individuals making better choices, and governments making some good choices. Like the number of people who've died from weather-related incidents, despite the people talking about global warming, has gone down significantly over the last 100 years. It's not a bad thing. Again, and it's a bunch of different stuff happening there. And another place where you see that too, and where people get freaked out, is like the food thing, right? So people are like, oh, like here are these companies trying to figure out world hunger, food supplies, logistics, and some of it is fine. Like some of it's like, well, these companies, these big ag companies, like they are involved in this stuff already. Do you, as a government, say like, well, we're just going to shut them out because like we don't like them, we don't like corporations, we don't want profit? Or do you work with them? And again, the part where I get like, no, we need to stay the heck away from that. So when you get some of these companies like, sure, we'll switch to all organic and we're going to follow your strict standards and we're going to develop regulations that shut out small farmers, like that type of stuff, that
We're
sucks.
so
That's
we're so
terrible.
good at it, Kevin, in the United States that we're taking down Amish farmers, man. We took down Amos the Amish. He had a 4,000 member kind of co-op, and the USDA went in and closed him down. All right,
Yeah.
$300,000 worth of fines. So that's the problem when we grant these guys directional power. That's what they do with it. They come up with regulations and they find this guy that's breaking their system, right? And they ruin him. And that's what they're trying to do to Amos. And I'm sad about it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's so many situations like that are just awful, and I definitely talk about regulatory capture quite a bit. Like it's a thing too, it's 100%. Again, to me, I'm like, it's not every instance of cooperation is necessarily bad, but there are a lot of bad ones. So I take it on a case by case basis.
I get that taking it on a case by case basis. The issue that I keep wanting to go back to for you is when we take it on a case by case basis, we say, oh, that one was good and that one was bad. All that does is allow them to do more of that when what we want somehow is a freer society and answers to pollution, right? Because the climate's going to change. We need answers for that. I get that we need the government for that. Somehow I want this disconnect from business and individuals and big businesses who basically have stables full of tax chattel for the federal government to be, I want their power to be minimized.
Again, all right, so like we'll talk about climate change stuff too, right? Okay, sure. Again, some of like what needs to happen on climate change, assuming that is a problem you think is worth addressing, which I do. I think I'm definitely not one of the doomers, like the world's
Right.
ending in 5 years and we need to end cap. Like that's not me. I'm like, okay, this is probably a thing that's going to start slowly impacting us, and we either need to mitigate potential damage and or try to reverse it, right? Okay, so
Right.
you accept that premise. What are things that companies can do? Well, develop new technology. What are things that government needs to do? Most of the time is get the heck out of the way. Like again, some of it's like, okay, you could limit like the externalities on the environment if you decide carbon is an externality. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a thing. And then some of that's again like get out of the way of nuclear power. There's a lot of really awesome potential there, and most of the reason it doesn't develop in the United States or in Germany for that matter is because the governments get in the way. Like
Correct.
that's the problem there. And again, the partnership that could be is like between the investors and the creators of nuclear power could like work with governments, be like, okay, you want to address this as a serious problem, then okay, here's how we do it. Here's a way that we can do that. Yeah, but you're going to have to work with the companies. The companies are going to have to work with the government to say, okay, here's what's safe, here's what works. Here's our evidence to prove that, because people are freaked out because a lot of populists are like, hey, what these people are just trying to make money. They don't care about the earth. They're going to kill us all. Like there's a lot of that. And so it takes time to overcome that.
We sensationalize stories. Okay. Chernobyl was the biggest nuclear disaster in the history, but like there's a documentary about 3 Mile Island and and we can take a look at Fukushima and the tidal wave incident. And yeah, we're going on the scale of infinite time, we're going to have an infinite possibility of disaster. So we're going to have nuclear disasters, right? The technology exists to minimize those disasters, and the problems at 3 Mile Island and the problems at Fukushima were minimized, absolutely minimized, other than the loss of power. That the real problems were minimized. So
yeah, and like really like
real discussion about nuclear
not really
power.
anyone died at either Fukushima or 3 Mile Island. Like didn't happen. People think like it was like, and it was close to being a serious thing. And Fukushima was a weird natural disaster that you can't always plan for every eventuality.
Correct.
But and so we'll get back to some of the ideology things. Like where can like I'll accept the premise. Okay, we have this problem and we want to do something about it, and it is good to do something about it, right? But like,
sure.
where does that lead you astray, right? And like, where do I get concerned about this stuff? So one is like, diehard absolutism in certain fields of like energy production, right? Like with the wind and solar stuff, like that's leading Germany down like a path where they might not be able to sustainably power themselves this winter.
Correct.
And that's becoming a problem again if you're dogmatic in only wanting certain solutions. Again, I'm not totally anti-solar wind. I just don't think it's the total thing. And I know, you have feelings about solar for sure,
I like
but
solar. I like green energy. I like the
yeah,
concepts behind it. I like developing power from our natural resources like the sun and the wind. I think that that's attractive to me. Now, it, there is a problem like that you're pointing out very well that they are not electric is not a great provider of heat. Okay, like it's just not that uses a lot of energy, and having BTUs stored in the side of your house that you can transfer to the inside of your house is an incredibly efficient and safe way to keep yourself from freezing to death in the winter. It's
yeah,
real. Okay, like that's real. So
yeah.
we have to move forward. We have to be sensible, right?
Yeah. So again, there's all these options out there. But if you are too narrow, or you're like haphazard in how you're gonna do it, like, oh, we're only gonna do this and we're gonna spend all this money, and like that's not there are other opportunity costs from doing things in a certain way where, hey, natural gas production makes sense for energy right now. It's very efficient. Like
Yeah.
it's good in a lot of ways. As we start to build this stuff up, if you're a radical and says we got to shut all this stuff down right now, it's literally going to kill people. No, we have to build that up. And
Yeah.
to that end, and you had mentioned like I think you had mentioned this, so we're on the commenters ditch. I promise we're going to get to a bunch of these
Yeah,
comments
these are
in a
great
few
comments,
minutes.
dude. They're fire.
Like,
I'm
you guys
getting
are leaving great
distracted from
stuff,
what you're
and we're
saying
going to
by
get to
reading
a
the
bunch of
comments.
them.
They're
But
great.
like there are people who, like, I think Jane Goodall made a statement about this at the World Economic Forum about how, like, maybe it's not a bad thing if, and I'm sort of like paraphrasing here, but maybe it's not a bad thing if COVID wipes a bunch of people out because we're overpopulated anyway. And
Yeah,
like it,
Malthusians. That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
They're
like
there.
again that, like, that Malthusian like idea of like, well, this isn't sustainable. We have too many people. We're not able to grow enough food to provide enough energy. So what
Right.
we have to do is control the population, and that, like, what starts with a good and reasonable idea to try to protect the environment and mitigate disaster can lead you down the road to evil ideas, right? Again,
Rigid authoritarianism. That's what that stuff is, right? We get into rigid authoritarianism where the solution is let people die, okay? And that's not cool. Now, I did find some stuff that came out of the World Economic Forum, like reimagining cities, okay, where what we have to do, and Patty Blanchard is going to appreciate this one, is what we have to do is make cities greener because as if the temperature is actually rising, what we have to do is find ways to mitigate heat in areas where heat accumulates. And so they want like green roofs, right? They want grass growing on roofs. They want cultural like centers in former hotspots that they plant trees and grow kind of cool stuff and maybe even actually move cooler air into that area and get rid of the hotter air. So these are things that
yeah, and
make
that's like
sense.
the cool, like, techno navel gazing side of them that, like, I kind of like and appreciate in some ways.
Sure. Yeah. We have to imagine a future that's better. Okay. And if we don't do that, if we imagine the future as evil, that we're going to overpopulate the earth and run out of resources, instead of saying, hey, technological advancement and human ingenuity is going to come up with answers for this, but we have to let them because we don't always know the answers. Even the smartest people in the world should be able to admit that they don't necessarily know the absolute best answer. They don't know what's going to be
Yeah.
most efficient and most appealing to individuals like Kevin and Tim and Shelly and Daniel and Paula.
Yeah. And
And
again, there are folks involved because, like, it's the whole, like, World Economic Forum stuff. Like, it's kind of messy because there are folks like that who are like, we can, like, use technology to fix and or address these problems, and that's cool. Like, I don't mind that. Again, and then there's a dark side of that, and like, well, I guess we're gonna have to institute a one child policy type of stuff, right? Like, and I don't know that anyone's
right,
actually but
these,
like that's what China did because they're worried about population. They instituted a one child policy, and that was like a demonstrably evil policy.
there's
That
always the authoritarian answer to this, and it always involves violence,
Yeah,
right?
like when you start like thinking like, well, we'll just control people, and like again, that Malthusian mindset is incredibly dangerous. When you start to think, yeah, we've really reached a point, we're gonna have to do something drastic to save humanity. That's when the supervillain stuff comes in. That's
That's
then everyone's suddenly Thanos.
and Klaus Schwab knows that. He absolutely knows that, and he absolutely plays with your minds. And he's at the basis of some of our more authoritarian. Uh, uh, you know, you were talking about opportunity cost. Apparently, an opportunity cost for more green energy and inflation reduction is IRS agents. I just want to point that out. I just want to.
No. So Tim, they're going to generate all this money, and then we'll have more money to invest in.
Yeah, yeah. They won't have to devalue the currency every year anymore. They will.
No,
That's sound. That's sound fiscal policy, bro.
they're going to get it. So
they're going after multinational corporations. That's what they need these clowns for. That's not what they need. That's
not what's going to happen.
No one should believe that. Okay, that is not what they need the extra agents for. They're going to catch Joe the landscaper and Tim the contractor and Kevin the ads guy who does some work for his friend on the weekend, and they're going to catch the lady down the street who's been taking in cash to babysit her neighbor's kids. Like, that's who they're going to catch, guys. That's who they can catch. That's who they have no risk of catching because we're all basically law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, more or less. But so you brought up the city thing, and I want to bring up, like, because there's all these memes around, like, you are going to own nothing and have no privacy and you're going to love it, right? So I looked up, like, where they actually came from. Like, it was from the World Economic Forum, but it was from, but it was from this blog post that Ida Alkin, who is a young global leader and member of the Global Future Council on Cities and Urbanization of the World Economic Forum. She wrote this article. It was entitled, "Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better." Right. And yeah. So like that's a real thing. Although, like, the article is strange, but a lot of people, like, take this statement. They're like, see, like, they're going to impose communism on us. I'm like, no, that's not really what it means. It's more, it's more corporatism than
it is definitely corporatism. And we see it every day. Like, go try to buy your own copy of, like, Microsoft Windows or whatever. You got to rent it now. Okay. Microsoft Office, excuse me. Like, of course, I still have my 2013
you got subscriptions for everything, right? Because you don't have to actually have a disk and install on your computer. You can just
you can lease heated seats now from BMW. Congratulations.
That one's hilarious.
Yeah, it's like, what a shitty business model. And you know what? It just fits with the World Economic Forum. So
let me explain the blog post, though, because, like, I do want to explain, like, what it was.
Do it,
and I'll, like, because, like, part of it's like, this is more observational than, like, aspirational, right? Like, so part of it, they're like, in the future, in cities specifically, a lot of people probably aren't going to own cars. They already don't own cars in, like, big enough cities, right? I didn't own a car for my first several years in Rochester. My wife and I shared one car. She drove to work. I rode my bike everywhere because, like, I got jobs that weren't far from me. But they say the article says, like, in the city, they're going to you're just going to be able to call up an Uber, which is going to be automated in the future too. They're going to be automatically driving cars, and you're just going to do that, like, and it'll be so, like, quick and convenient that, like, why would you bother owning a car for the trips you do need to make, because you could just use this. And it's already sort of happening in Rochester. I know several friends who, like, there's Zip cars available. The city has, like, a rental car system where you can just go up, enter a number, and, like, take an electric car out for the day. It's really cheap to do. So if you're able to get to work on a bus or something, and then you need to go drive out to the, a friend's house an hour away, you can rent a car. Like, so and same way. And she had brought it to, like, well, maybe people will do that with clothing too. There are, like, subscription clothing boxes now you can do, rental. So, like, okay, maybe the one that I found a bit far-fetched is, like, and no one will cook at home anymore, and they're just going to, even if you do want to cook at home, you'll just rent the pots and pans. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I want a consistent frying pan. Like, I need to know, like, how it's going to react to my stove. And then the no privacy, the article made that clear. That's a negative thing, because companies will know so much about you from the buying decisions you're constantly having to make to subscribe and or rent everything, that they'll know absolutely everything about you. And they're thinking, like, most people will probably be okay with that, in the same way that a lot of people are okay with what, like, Facebook and Google knows about you now, and Amazon knows about you now.
True.
They're uneasy with it, but, like, they're not going to stop using those services.
Yeah, we pretty willingly give up our data like that. We pretty willingly, if unwittingly, give away our data. I will say that the World Economic Forum has I would call it a social media platform outreach kind of program, where they grant money to 800 or so young people a year to get out there and make noise on their behalf. So, was this blogger one of those, or was that not identified? I would
It's
imagine.
kind of like that, like employed to advocate for
Yeah.
solutions and like
So,
being a futurist, basically. That's
yeah. All right. And look, I'm a big fan of talking about future stuff. Like I'm the guy that says, look, roads are causing global warming. You paint half the earth black, it's going to hold heat and reflect it back into the atmosphere. That's a real problem. If we had flying cars, Kevin, we would
flying
not need
cars.
as much roads as we got. Roads are baloney. They're baloney. They're destroying the environment. Paint them white. That will save the world.
All right, so Klaus, you heard it here. Give Tim a flying car, and you can buy his loyalty.
Yes, honestly, guys, somebody please get me a flying car. Like technological. There was a point I made on my Facebook page, guys. Like I like to talk about things that sometimes I try to draw you into a conversation with me. But I made a point about how not only does government steal from us through taxes, not only does government steal from us through like the taxation, through devaluing the currency, they also steal from us by like taking advantage of technological advancement, and where there are times with what the government has done to us that we would have really lost some standard of living that we currently enjoy.
Yeah.
If when they do that, like the technological advancement outpaces their theft. I don't know if that makes sense to people, but it's in my brain and I just want to talk about it. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I
to
mean,
you?
look, it does make sense. That's like my hope for the future is that like we can companies can move fast enough and break enough things that like the regulation almost wouldn't matter. Like that's like part of me is like, Uber. I appreciated what they did because it's like we're just gonna go out and start doing this thing, and a bunch of governments like, wait, no, you can't do that. And
Well,
by the time like they
that's what
caught
I'm
up
saying.
to like freaking out about it, they're like, well, everyone actually kind of loves this.
All right, so
But like
I'm really glad that
if they had asked permission, like
yeah.
it just wouldn't ride sharing would not be a thing.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you got my point there. That I
Yeah.
think that it's kind of almost abstract that people don't realize that our standard of living may be slightly better than it was 30 years ago, but that it could have been so much more had the government not stolen part of it
Yeah.
by stopping technological advancement, by actually fighting over infrastructure and saying this is the only way to build a bridge. This is the only way that we can travel from place to place. And the car companies and big oil are like, yeah, no, they're definitely right. Those guys got it. Like this is
Yeah.
the only way to do it.
Well, that's
You need roads, you need tires, and you need engines, and that's
right.
it.
Destroyed the trolleys.
Just saying.
Well,
They-
one of the actual true conspiracies, they're tearing up all the trolley lines for
yeah,
the roads.
every once in a while you'll hit a big bump in a city and you'd be like, yeah, your kid will be like, what is that? You'll be like, they used to run trolleys down through here all day long, every day.
Yeah, no,
People
like the
just
ice
jump
cream
on.
shop I go to in my neighborhood, there's like this path that just kind of like cuts through the neighborhood. It's just like this greenway, and it's where power lines run now, but it's where there used to be a trolley line that would run from my neighborhood up to the lake.
Yeah, they used to go from
Um,
Oneonta up to Cooperstown. They used to go from Oneonta up to Utica, and there's still remnants there. Like these roads were well built. Like you dump big piles of stone and you flatten it out. They're still there. You can still walk them all
Yeah.
over the place around here. We were like the birthplace of the railroad and baseball, just so everybody knows.
All right, so we're like halfway through. Let's get to some of the comments.
There's some
right?
fire comments. I hope we can remember what we were talking about.
Like, so we'll come back up. Patty says, Kevin, you said yesterday that if you do crazy and bad things, you suffer the consequences of losing friends. Why are good and bad countries hanging out with them? Money. Yeah, I mean that's part of it. Again, and my point yesterday with like talking about the wildest press conference in Rochester history was like you can choose to do that, and there are many cases in which like perhaps the United States and certainly individual actors with the United States should disassociate with bad actors in China and Saudi Arabia. And
and support their freaking messaging like they're paid mouthpieces for those jokers. It's embarrassing.
Yeah. And I hope they make those individual choices. Again, on the geopolitical level, it's tough because I get like they have a big impact. So excluding them from those discussions means that like this that especially if they are the cause of the problem, without the use of force, without going to war, like how do you convince them to stop doing the bad thing?
Yeah, China
Uh,
made the case like they're the moral superior. Like we
yeah,
need free trade. We need to be, and it's like you guys are jailing people for like nonsense.
yeah.
For for religious beliefs. It's bad, and they turn them into slaves, bro. Why? It's just bad. China does bad shit, and then they lecture the world. I
It,
find
it, yeah, no, 100%. Um, let's see. Steve says better living through eugenics. Yeah, I mean, again, we'd mentioned that. It's just
yeah.
sometimes like you get in that Thanos mindset. Like, yeah, you know what? It is totally justified to, you know, get rid of half the population. That's going to help, guys. It doesn't help, and actually,
Thanos did his best to keep it random. Let's be honest. It was
he
just
did.
50% right down the middle. He knew that was the moral and just decision. It was not genetically superior. It was
So, guys,
not
not eugenics.
his
It's just
friend.
random,
It
right?
was
So
just
different, but
50% down the middle.
yeah,
That's the kind of king we need, guys.
tough but fair.
Tough, tough but fair.
Daniel says ESG is not a conspiracy. Got an email just the other week from a tenant asking for a specific breakdown on utilities for ESG reporting. Yeah, no, it's a legit thing. And again, ESG stands for environmental, social, and government. And it's a score that evaluates. Again, I don't necessarily have a problem with this concept in and of itself. It is how it's used, how it's ranked, that I have a little bit more of an issue with. But okay, if a private entity wanted to rank, does this company have a lot of impact on the environment? Are they having a negative impact somewhere? Are they treating their workers fairly? Are they causing damage to the community through like what they're doing? Again, subjective, but and then governance risk is like, are they likely to be subject to regulation in the near future? And that score together gives investors a clue about whether or not they might want to invest in that type of company, right?
If it aligns with their virtue.
If it does it align with their values. Again,
I prefer the word virtue, but values is what they would say.
That is what they would say. And so, like, again, that in and of itself doesn't necessarily like bother me, but it's how it's used, how it gets gamed, that ends up being a problem. Like, I was reading an article about how a lot of tech companies are able to kind of game this system because they're just like, during COVID, they all went remote. So they're able to kind of indicate that their environmental score went down because their employees aren't commuting long distances to the office. And then they have like kind of low like admin overhead anyway. So they're able to game that side of the system and get a good ESG score, even though like it's not like they changed anything fundamentally. And again, it's a matter of what you count versus what you don't count. Again, direct pollutants put to the atmosphere versus commuting time versus like, okay, all those like servers that have to be run, are you counting the power from those? Where's that power come from? Is it sustainable? You can, I work in software, work in data a lot, and like you can measure all sorts of stuff to tell the story that you want to tell. And so if the companies designing and advocating for the system want to tell a story about how they have a good ESG score and you should feel good about investing in them, they can do it.
You know what Raytheon's ESG score is, Kevin?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Well, I mean, they're very proud of their green killing machines. Okay. Like they're like, we make the greenest killing machines in the world. And because we love the environment, we love it.
Right.
And our manufacturing processes are also net zero. And it's like,
yeah, well, if they're manufacturing a solar and wind powered,
murdering clowns, like seriously, stop it.
I know. Yeah, I've seen some of that stuff, like where they're like, yes, we at this weapons company, like we're 100% renewable energy. I'm like, guys, you were still making bombs.
You're making freaking bombs. Wow. I honestly, it's they're guys. If you want your brain to kind of explode, you should check out Raytheon's tweet stream. They are very proud of their investments in green manufacturing. Very proud.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate people roasting them for that and for their like LGBTQ stuff, and they're like, yeah, like we're a great company. I'm like, okay.
All right, so look, you don't have to like that guy from New Hampshire, but his make war gay is.
Oh, I hated that.
Oh my god, it was hilarious, bro. Come on.
No, that sucked.
It's satire. Satire. It's a
No,
good level
we
set.
could do like a whole other thing on that because they got a whole bunch of bad, like damaging stuff going on. Like New Hampshire Libertarian
That may
Party is
be,
doing
but
terrible.
the lack of
They
success is very frustrating. That's a reality. And as libertarians, if we don't start
so
acknowledging,
like we're gonna make things better by making like Holocaust jokes. Great.
no, I'm
Yeah,
not saying
thanks.
that. I'm not
That's what
saying
they
that.
did today, Tim. So
No, you have to see the Make War Gay video. I don't think you've seen it because you would
no, I have seen it, and I'm like,
Kevin,
yeah,
I don't.
no, like
You
that's
got it,
I
man.
that
I
doesn't
gotta
hit in a
explain it
way
to you.
that like I get the joke they're trying to make, but like it just doesn't hit in
I
a way
know.
that like I
I
think
know. Look, it's a symptom of a lack of success. I want to be
yeah.
honest with you.
No, I mean I that I agree with. Like lack of success has led people to radical strategies
Hmm.
that I think are counterproductive, but that's true.
Yeah. All right, we got this.
No,
This
let's
one
get
that's the one I was going to hit.
good.
Yeah.
All right. So Paula on Facebook says, seems like green movement is another type of Fabian socialism. It never wants to address issues at the local level. So many green types just want to have the feds take over everything in the name of climate change.
They'll come up with
But
alphabet soup agencies to solve your problems, Paula. They definitely will. You definitely know that's their goal. Because honestly, where a point Kevin and I kind of agree on, they think that they're doing something good when they create a government jobs program to solve a problem that they created. So yeah, you're absolutely this is spot on, right? They
yeah,
centralized planning, feds taking over everything. And here we are going abolish the ATF, abolish the FBI, abolish the CIA, abolish the IRS. And we need to sell that, man. People got to understand
yeah.
what we're talking about.
No. So it's although here's one of the things where I get a bit conflicted on, right? Like building stuff like railroads, like high speed rail, metro lines, like kind of doing any project right now, it gets caught up in a lot of stuff, like usually at the local level,
Right.
right? And there are other countries like is so much cheaper to build a mile of like metro line in France or in Japan than it is in the United States. And part of it's because like the national government just says, nah, we're gonna do this, and there's no like local board to object. So on the one hand, like you get stuff done. On the other hand, you're probably tearing up communities to do that.
You are, and you're stealing property the whole way through.
Eminent domain.
So
I'm conflicted on this one because part of me is like, yeah, that stuff would be helpful in some of these situations. Like,
I would never get on a high speed train. That's crazy. I'm
I've been
holding
on
out
one
for
before,
flying
it's
cars,
fine.
bro.
Just wait for flying cars.
Yeah, automated flying cars. I just beep beep beep, punch him the address, kick back, start making nasty tweets, and working on my Facebook page, and that's it. That's what I do. And then I show up at work a couple hours later. It's perfect.
Yeah, might be a thing. But yeah, so that's one of those interesting things about that. And again, if you do that, you can just say, hey, we're going to build this nuclear power plant, and if like a handful of locals like, no, this stinks, we don't want radiation in our backyard, they can be like, nope, deal with it.
Yeah.
Again, that's the temptation, right? Like again, and I'm against that. Like I get like why it seems enticing to be like, if we just get these corporations and governments together at the international level, like we can go and get stuff done and like not worry about the rubes who are opposed to this. They just don't know what's good for them, right? And it's like it is like an elitist like mentality that goes into that. And I get the temptation, but it can lead you to some dark roads. We're gonna talk about the crickets.
We've got to talk about the crickets, man. We gotta, right? Are we supposed to fry them? How do you cook crickets, guys? I've had like chocolate covered crickets, but actually, I think it was like raisins. I don't think it was actually crickets.
I mean, you can fry them like the Mexican crickets that you can get. Very good, fry them, cover them some. Yeah, no, it's actually good. You can have them in flour. So it's just like
roll them in flour.
No. Well, I mean, you could do that too when you fry them, but like they grind them into a powder, and so it's like just a protein rich, like it, and you mix it with like wheat flour, and it just adds extra protein to food. It's the thing.
Yeah.
And again, the crickets thing is one of those like it's more observational than prescriptive in a lot of cases. Although sometimes it starts to lean into the prescriptive thing.
Can I blow that point up for a second?
Go ahead.
I think the perception is, and I think we've seen it play out in reality, and perhaps I'm repeating myself, but that what the suggestions that come out of the World Economic Forum are rapidly put into action by unimaginative Vogons who want to say, all right, look, I'm doing something for my
Vogons,
virtue.
love the reference.
And we're going to bulldoze your freaking house. And you know what I'm saying? So that's the perception of what the World Economic Forum and their wilder suggestions comes down to, is that AOC is going to jump on that idea. Nancy Pelosi is going to smash it through the House, and the Senate is going to pass it by one vote because Kamala Harris is going to come down there, and Joe Biden is going to be like, let's give him $80 billion to enforce that law. You know what I mean? Like that's the perception. And I think that perception is probably based on some level of reality.
No, there's some level of reality there, right? Like that they could impose this solution on folks rather than like, again, like for the folks who are like, there's these entrepreneurs who are like, you know what? I bet bros will drink a protein shake made out of crickets if it's high enough protein. And they're right, as it turns out. And people want it, and they buy it, and it's super cheap to raise crickets. And like that's and that's why like these you know, technocrat futurist types are like, yeah, you know, like we're gonna like start doing crickets because it's cheap and it's better for the environment than meat. And like, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then if they start going, and we should make it mandatory, and I'm like, wait, no, that's where you lost me.
Let it compete in the free market. You want to buy like fake meat? Buy fake meat. I don't care. I buy real meat. I put it in my freezer, and I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah. So
and like Shelly says, it means nothing and have no privacy. That much. Yeah, they're pretty happy. Orange is the new black. They don't ever seem happy in that one.
No, it's not great. You know.
Let me handle this one by Steve that comes up. Our friend Steve Becker. Your gas stove will soon be illegal. And guys, look, the way I'm seeing New York State going, this is an absolute fact. All right.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. Honestly, it got proposed. A city councilwoman proposed it in Rochester.
Yeah. Look, that's the amazing issue. Like we have an apartment complex that was just built by the government, enriching a developer, giving him property for free basically, and then granting him millions of dollars in tax credits. But they put in 70 gas meters into this complex, and I'm like, how's that going to work out? Like that's not. We're moving towards we can't get more gas supplied to our community right now. We can't get a pipeline connection. We have to drive trucks up and down the road, and so people go like, well, those are bomb trucks, and not one of them is blown up. But of course, there's this horrific dialogue that society comes up with, and every joker and clown jumps on board who thinks the blue boot is on their foot. Okay, these jokers think they're wearing the boot, right? And they're not. They're licking the boot, and they need to knock it off. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, and well, one other quick point I like the gas. Again, there are good reasons to get rid of gas stoves or like other gas appliances, right? So like they do emit like a lot of like pollution inside your house too, like because it does. A lot of gas stoves, like especially once they get a bit older, they get a bit dirty, they don't burn as cleanly. So like there are reasons to not do it. You can usually mitigate with stove. I have a gas stove. I don't like that it makes my kitchen much hotter during the summer, and I don't know why it makes my kitchen so hot I know why I'm burning gas. But like I might get an induction stove next. We'll see. But I don't want to be cool. I don't. They've gotten better, but I don't want to be forced to do that because a bunch of folks are like, "We'll just get an induction stove." You know, like they work just as well as gas. I'm like, oh, no, they don't. B, I have to buy weird cookware to do it. And C, like they're just very expensive. And not everyone wants to do that. Like you shouldn't force people to like switch over to that thing. Like provide a carrot or something if you want, but like
let the battle be fought. And that's how technological advancement happens. And that drive to serve your neighbors. That's the amazing thing about real capitalism. That drive to serve your neighbors better than the other guy creates efficiency. It creates new technology, and it creates compassion, or allows compassion to happen, non-government sponsored compassion to happen. And that's something else the government has taken from us: the ability to be as compassionate as we would like to be. Our tax burden is too high. I'm not. Kevin, I did promise you. Yeah, guys, you should learn how to make alcohol, like your own alcohol, because at some point you may have to heat your house with it. You may have to use it for your individual, like when you need something, because they can shut off the supply of propane. They can shut off the supply of gas. They can make it illegal. Like, I'm not saying that they're going to, but they could, and they have too much control. We've given them too much control.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's a thing now where it's just a supply issues. Like again, not as much
Yeah.
in the U.S. because we have some domestic supply, but in Europe, they could just shut down.
Yeah, we could. So there's a point I want to make about nuclear power. I and the migrant crisis at the border. And look, guys, I hate what's going on where people are used as political footballs. I think that cheapens all of us. When we celebrate the governor of Texas shipping buses to New York City, but when we don't actually accept the fact that there is some sort of humanitarian crisis going on at the border, and that Texas can't handle all these people that are coming in as effectively as they if they built infrastructure. Oh my God, I sound like a bootlicking status. But if they built infrastructure to handle these things, okay. When we use people, human beings, as political footballs, and we ship them all over the country to make political points. And I'm not even saying that the governor of Texas, and his name is escaping me right now, is wrong. It's just we used to be better human beings ourselves than that. There's a certain amount of blessing I think that we should all feel by being born of a really truly long running, mostly capitalist society that is now being perverted and corrupted into a corporatocracy and a fascist, semi oligarchy kind of deal. But we can still reach back to our better selves and say, all right, this whole thing is awful. But I have a way to solve the problem, Kevin. I have a way to solve the problem. Do you know how many nuclear power plants there are in Mexico? Guess how many nuclear power plants there are in all of South America?
I don't know.
There's one in Mexico. One.
And
one. There's like 7 in all of South America. 7.
Wow.
Do you know how many nuclear power plants are in the United States?
I mean, not enough, but more than that.
There's like 65 or 70.
Yeah.
Hang on, I had it up. It may even be more than that. May get close to it. Let me pull it up. I think it might get nuclear. I think it might get to close to 1,000
in the U.S.
I'm not sure. They keep it pretty quiet, right?
Yeah, I didn't think it was that many. But
let me check.
Because so many had kind of
mix and match. My brain gets impulsive when we have these long, extended conversations. Right. So I see 52. All right. So there's 52 in the United States, 1 in Mexico, 7 in South America. If and this would bring back this notion of limitless power for individuals to consume, okay, that is green in its nature, that doesn't. Okay, so if we don't help them move towards nuclear power generation, and if we don't end the war on drugs, the crisis continues because their economies are run by black market thugs who battle with the government for supremacy, okay?
Yeah.
And then they sell the opportunity to get smuggled into the United States. Like, if we don't fix this issue that they don't have the right amount of power, that nuclear power could solve their problems. So I'm saying nuclear power, end the war on drugs. It's not a short-term solution, but it would solve the problem. And it is a problem. Like, we can want more immigration, but we also have to accept that the current way we do it is horrible for everybody.
Oh yeah, it's a mess.
And it would be better if they had more opportunity, right? And limitless power at their disposal to cool their homes or whatever it is that they're, disempower these things, disempower black marketeers, disempower violence through, economic opportunity and free trade and the industriousness of the human being. And I think nuclear energy has the ability to provide that. But yeah, that's it.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, I generally agree. You can make life better in some of these other places. Open up other opportunities there, and you could do that through expanding trade policies. We do have relatively good trade policies in Mexico, although I don't know. I think NAFTA was better, but that's just me. But
you think what? I'm sorry.
NAFTA was better than what we have now, than whatever it is. I forget.
Whatever hodgepodge,
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, it'd be great if we had full free trade. I get it, but but opening up free trade makes it easier for materials to build those things and to have things like air conditioners, to have things that make their lives better. So you don't. so you don't have as much control over like the day-to-day like buying and selling of goods in the hands of like violent people. As you start to expand the opportunities into other entrepreneurs, the cartels have less power, and the bad human traffickers have less power
Yeah.
when people are able to get over. And there's different things that like freedom is the answer. That's the
I
whole point.
agree, man. And so it hit me when we were going to be talking about the World Economic Forum and global warming today, and limitless sources of power. And nuclear power, on some level, can offer us all limitless sources of power if we use it effectively and responsibly. And I guess this would get to where Kevin says, occasionally we need stakeholder and government partnerships. And I think nuclear power is probably one area where I think it would make it more acceptable. And ending black markets, guys, the violence that comes from black markets is you don't see it anyplace better than what happens. You see it localized in cities, okay, but maybe you don't see it in your local communities, but you see it on a grand scale when you talk about people fleeing. And people want to blame climate change so that they can empower the centralized government. But what they're fleeing is violence, okay? They're fleeing violence, and they're looking for a better life for them and their kids. And the black market that the United States used its military to help create, the war on drugs, is the reason for the migrant problem, the immigration problem. What do you think? Am I too far off base there? Am I too socialistic, communistic, or is it just the right tone that libertarians should take?
No, I mean, I generally agree with you on a bunch of that, but
yeah.
All right. So
problems once again.
Yeah, we solved it. All right. So I know we didn't definitively answer the question though. Like, it's a World Economic Forum, something to worry about. Again, like
yes, it's something to be worried about. How do we disempower those clowns? The same way we disempower all the rest of the clowns. Like, come up with.
Do you have a solution? Come on.
Yeah, no. So that's the thing, right?
Tim,
what are the solutions? Disempower the federal government. Cancel the 16th Amendment. Like that's how we do it. Wait, what? That's not going to happen. I know. But guys, we can have impact locally. All right, we can spread the message of freedom. And look, I don't think enough is made about the even though we talk about it regularly, the issue of getting local people with common sense and good objectives elected to your local boards, who people who want to craft solutions. And what they're going to find out there once they get there is that the prescriptions from the state government are really what they're there complaining about and why they ran, and that they don't have as much power as they think they do. But if we get enough people in those positions and we keep working at it, I think we can fix some of this stuff.
Yeah. I agree. And I fall into the batch of probably there's some things to worry about through the World Economic Forum and what they're doing, and like kind of the
politicians. We should all worry about that.
Yeah. Again, like there's some troublesome relationships, but mostly I'll take their solutions on a case by case basis. Again, I'm not really bothered by like more people using rentals, in rideshare services for cars. Like that doesn't bug me.
That's a free market competition, man. Enjoy
it.
Like
again, it's fine. I said, I don't mind it. Like I'm like an optimist about technology for the most part, and like where they talk about that stuff, I'm like, yeah, cool, great. Like, and the solution is to get the government out of the way, not to like say that we just need more, government funding to support these technologies. Nope, lost me there.
Yeah,
we need to force everyone to use this thing. Nope, lost me there too.
Yeah. I mean, believe me, like Lyft and Uber have to buy their regulatory permissions from municipalities to get in there and sell their stuff. They didn't at first, but now they do. Just like DraftKings and that gambling stuff, they had to buy their permissions from New York State to get in here and sell their wares,
Yeah.
So
there's there's cool stuff out there. Just be wary of anyone who starts to sound like a Malthusian, and anyone who starts to say that's a great idea, we're gonna force it on everyone. Nope.
Right. Anytime you can say no, just no. Stop it. And honestly, even if we can get in there and stop the virtue signaling, right? on our local level and just say, look, what you're doing is simply virtue signaling. You need to knock it off. We need to serve our students, our constituents, our towns members. You serving the government and your virtue doesn't do anything. It doesn't bring jobs here. It doesn't like solve the issue. Everybody in my area turns to government should build housing when in fact government destroyed rental housing and the two-family situation of people would rent out rooms. They destroyed it. Okay. They destroyed it. And they have not taken one step back from that. If they take a few steps back from that, that would have an immediate impact on the availability of affordable housing, an immediate impact. If people could count on the government to help them get rid of a bad tenant, okay, to help them enforce a contract with a bad tenant, that would have an immediate impact on the problem with not having enough housing for people. But of course, now they started building apartment complexes. So what do? They're only going to make it more illegal.
Without government, how would we have apartment buildings? There's no way to get apartment buildings without the government, Tim.
There was a way, and you guys regulated it out of existence. They're just, and you try to explain that to them, and they look at you and they're like, "Oh, the crazy guy! That's so cute." Like, you don't understand, bud. We have to do it this way now.
You're shouting on the streets. No, we can build our own apartments. We just gotta allow it.
And just help me protect my property from bad people. That's all I'm asking. I'll still rent to good people if I get protection from you when I rent to bad people. I swear to God, because the extra cash I get is awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, do we want to do any fake news stuff?
I got one that's kind of pretty cool.
All right.
I'll go first.
Go.
All right. So apparently, Kevin, and you tell me if this is true or not.
All right.
A monkey in San Luis Obispo, California, has decided to call 911. He didn't really have a complaint, though.
Didn't have
real news or fake news?
It's real news. Smart.
It is real news. I'm not as good at you as hiding the punchline. Like, anyway. Yes, a monkey in San Luis Obispo, California on August 17th called 911 and made some noises, and he grabbed somebody's cell phone and managed to fire off a 911 call. And it was a little capuchin monkey named Root. And he picked up the zoo cell phone, which was in a golf cart, and just made a call.
Nice.
It's pretty cool, right?
Love it. All right, so I got a couple quick ones for you.
All right.
Headline: Papa John's is excited to offer folks a new spin on pizza. Toppings only, no crust. Is this a real product or a fake product? They sound just a plate of toppings.
That's real. That's a little heated up. Covered with cheese. Actually, kind of sounds delicious.
Oh, you're so wrong about that. You're right about it being real news, but you're wrong about it. I don't know. It does not appeal to me. I'm like, all right, so it's just some fried vegetables.
It's gluten-free, bro.
It's gluten-free. I guess. I don't know. If I'm gonna eat like pizza toppings, like I want it on a pizza. It's just a bowl of fried vegetables at that point, which is fine. I've had bowls of fried vegetables. I make it at home, but like, I don't know.
Oh my God, I got a fake news thing for you. Tim O'Connor, the Freedom Variant, found a tweet by Robert Reich that he ostensibly agreed with. Real news or fake news, Kevin?
Real news. It sounds like fake news though, but
I know it's real news. Ostensibly, I agree with him. Much ado has been made about the $10,000 tax credits, or $10,000 credit for student loans. Okay, yes. Much ado. And I'm going to say, originally, right from the start, everybody had it wrong. And then guys like Spike Cohen and the Libertarian Party all kind of stole my concept, but they haven't quite nailed it quite as well as I have. That, look, the federal government is a predatory lender. Okay, They have manipulated, they have lied, and they have cajoled children into taking on debt for education when the goal should be, I want to be this. Instead, the government has convinced them all you need is the education, not a specific goal. And the education itself will make your life better. And then the
Yeah.
government says, well, you have to have an education to have one of our jobs. So it's like this self-fulfilling kind of garbage prophecy, right? And I have it. I put my way through school. I support people that want to do that. But this $10,000 cash grant is nothing compared to what we've given to big businesses, corporations, and stuff like that to encourage their behavior. So basically, what this was an advertising. So Robert Rice didn't get it quite right, but I didn't disagree with him when he said this too much is being made about this. You don't get upset when we give money to corporations. You don't get upset when we give money to China or whatever, right? Like kids can use this money and they're in dire straits. They've been lied to, they've been manipulated, they've been preyed upon by the government. The $10,000 is just advertising to encourage more kids to believe in the fallacy of a non-directed education.
Yeah. So, all right, a couple things about it. So one, like, it's so funny to see populists like talk about this because I've seen this a bunch from not just you, but I saw like a few other libertarians talking about the same thing, or just like,
I'm a populist. That's fine.
yeah, no, and Robert Reich is also a populist, but he's a left wing populist,
He's
right?
not
No,
and fascism
he
populism.
you could be populist and a fascist at the same time.
A lot of them are.
Exactly. And it's interesting to see that because, like, I think you and I agree on like both the impact and the solutions regarding like federal student loans for the most part.
Sure.
But and like to me, like as a libertarian, like I was mad about those other government giveaways, so like don't play that game.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
But B, like I don't think that this is like a malicious thing. I don't think the student loan program is malicious. I think it is short-sighted and like the people who like continue to push this despite like the negative consequences that like end up down the road, just it's not that they're malicious about it, it's just that they refuse to see beyond like the immediate good that they think they're accomplishing, right? And that is so much of like what government does. So again, for student loans, it's like we are getting kids to college. Yay, mission accomplished. Like we've done a good thing. We got kids to college. And then again, you don't realize down the road, like we're causing degree inflation. We're causing tuition to go up because there's no reason for colleges to control prices. We're putting these kids in debt, kids, young adults, people like myself too, like who stupidly didn't understand the IBR program. And now I owe more than what I actually paid.
Right.
Or what I borrowed originally. Again, they don't think about the long-term consequences. So even this like $10,000 forgiveness, like we're helping like people out. And I'm like, wait, this doesn't fundamentally solve the problem. Like you need to think beyond that. Like you need to go beyond like the warm fuzzies that we feel right now.
Okay.
And think about what happens 10 years from now if you don't actually change anything. So yeah, you think you're doing good, but like you're not.
Where it gets predatory, Kevin, is that you cannot bankrupt your way out of college student loans. You cannot. There is no
jerk senator made that happen.
What's that? Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
Yeah, Joe Biden was behind that. Sure.
Yeah.
And George Bush, guys, helped rewrite the bankruptcy laws that definitely contracted human freedom. Okay, it's a look. Contracting human freedom is very, very, very bipartisan. All right.
Yeah.
So there's no accountability to the degree that's offered. So, and look, I'll go one step further. I could tell you a personal story where my stepdaughter went to college. They tell her that she's going to get admitted to a nursing program. She just has to take one semester of classes. She takes the classes that she understands she's supposed to take. And then she goes back and says, all right, transfer me into the program. And they're like, you didn't take the right classes. You've got to take another semester. So she's going to would have ended up at taking 3 years, going $6,000-$7,000 a semester into debt. Okay. It's predatory like I've never seen. Like credit cards are not anywhere near as predatory as the federal government loaning money to young children who want a better life.
Yeah. Well, like I said, because again, to me, like the relationship isn't predatory, it's just bad incentives, right? It's like bad economics. And again, and I say this as someone like who, again, the government's just like, we're going to help poor kids get to college. Let's not worry about whatever else happened. We're going to help poor kids get to college. And like, this is how we do it. We give them unlimited loans. And then the colleges are like, again, and I say this as someone like I was on the board of trustees at a college. Like, this isn't like abstract for me. Like, I was in the room, like talking about this stuff. Right. In the college, they look at this stuff and they say, hey, listen, because students are able to get either grants or loans to come here, they are not that price sensitive, right? Like they're just not thinking about like what this cost is because they know that the government is going to give them a loan or grants for covering the cost of this. So when we're considering raising tuition or not raising tuition, that is something we need to keep in mind. The rich students will be able to cover that. It won't matter. The middle class students will get loans, then the government will give them all the loans that they need for the most part. And lower class students, working class students will get grants and loans to cover that too. And so if students aren't price sensitive, they're not shopping based on the amount of like how much it costs. They're sensitive to other things like education programs and residence halls and amenities. So if you want those students to come, you need to pay for that stuff. So the best thing for the college to do is to raise the prices, knowing that they're not going to lose that many students by raising the prices because they're not price sensitive. If they cut their tuition, they cut their costs, they're probably not going to gain that many students because, again, they're not that price sensitive. But you'll gain more students by bringing in more money and then reinvesting that in education programs and new residence halls and other stuff. So again, in the boards, they don't make money off of this. They're all volunteer boards at like any nonprofit college. Like they cannot make money from this. So it's just, you look at this from a financial decision. How do we offer the best education possible? Well, we raise tuition, we raise the money a bunch because the government's backing it and we're not on the hook if these students can't actually pay for it in the long run. Again, it's not that they're not making the moral decision of like, we have to consider that too.
Even the disconnect. Right. The disconnect that you're talking about there, right? The accountability disconnect. While I call it predatory, I feel that that's an accurate description. What you're saying about the human beings in every system is always true. Okay. But the system itself becomes predatory. Okay.
Yes.
So when you have teachers in high school saying, what you need to do is go to college. Well, I don't really know what I want to be. Well, go to college. Figure it out.
And that's kind of like how I see it. It's not the individual actors in that system who are like predatory, acting immorally or predatory. Right. They all think they're doing what is best given their situation and perspective. And it's not in like a greedy way. It's just like, oh, like we want to help these kids, or like we want to help build a better education program.
We want to have good sidewalks on our campus and
yeah, exactly. Like that type of stuff. But again, like it's not like that individual system is that individual decision is wrong. It's that in collective, when the government sets these policies to do these things to create bad incentives, that's when you start that's where I'll agree. That's where it becomes predatory in the way all these work in conjunction with one another with bad incentives.
And to simplistically call it predatory is to attract attention to the issue that, number one, you can't bankrupt out of this stuff. Number two, college isn't for everybody. And I had a buddy, liberal teacher, liberal all the way through. Matter of fact, we can't even communicate anymore because he's rabid authoritarian liberal. But even he, as a teacher, was like, no, there's so much we're doing that's wrong in education by encouraging all kids to go to college is a real problem. We need to take individual students' desires and goals into account and their abilities. Some kids can't write, but they can build a birdhouse, bro. So like, let's get them those sets of skills that takes birdhouse building to the next level. Okay. And that has been destroyed. Okay. And so that makes the drive to send more kids to college. It encourages that drive. And even some liberal unionized, authoritarians agree with that concept.
Yeah. Again, it's those things too. It's just the high school environment kind of drives people to those things rather than figuring out what would make sense without having to necessarily all go to college. And like I said, there's so many opportunities out there for different stuff. And I might get to this comment in a second, but
I like this one.
the other the other thing as well too, and I'll kind of get to this comment is like I also sat on like the curriculum committee at my college as a student, so I sat there for 3 years and we designed the curriculum. One things like that they had an issue with is that a lot of students would come in and they're like they're just not ready for college, like legit, like they got in and like their grades are good and on paper they're really great, and it's just like shoot, like the education system doesn't even prepare them for this. We have to take time
Yeah.
doing this. And a lot of those students, the ones who are like marginal and not prepared, and they're not able to catch up, they end up spending more time in college because the colleges are trying to catch them up to get them to the level that they feel is their standard for their degree that public high schools aren't meeting. So they spend year 5 and 6 and take on more debt to finish their degree to do
Sure.
that stuff. Again, that's a direct failing of public education driving greater debt in college, and people don't make that connection very often, but like that is
It's a
something
good
else that
connection to
happens.
make. I think a lot of kids would be way more successful meeting the goals of what a college offers if they took a little time to mature before they went there. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
No, so I was the RA of an all freshman boys
Yeah.
floor, and I can you can see that.
You're just like,
Um,
wow, this is really awful. A lot
yeah,
of you guys
but
aren't prepared for this.
yeah, I mean, but like in many ways, I wasn't, and I figured it out because like the people around me, and that's nice. And college can be a good like way of like getting there, but
Sure.
for a lot of young people like that, they're not ready for it. They're not going to get there. It's a very expensive way to like learn adulting.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. No, I have some memories that faded and, it interfered with by substances.
well,
So, yeah, I know what you're
it was
saying.
legal. It was legal back in your day to drink
And
in
and I had
college,
left
right?
home early, so and I
Yeah,
still wasn't quite ready. Like, I moved out of my home when I was young, and I
yeah,
still college was still incredibly overwhelming for me.
yeah. Let me get this come to Shelly on YouTube says, my 4 kids went to college. One of them works in their field of study. Yeah, no, that happens all the time. And again, if you either in high school or in college, like learn how to learn and learn like some of
Right.
the other skills, like either writing or how to socialize and network in college is great. I have a degree in history and political science, and I think I said this on the show yesterday. Like,
Sure.
other than this show, I don't like use that degree directly. I use it in a roundabout way, but
Correct.
I am in digital marketing, advertising, and sort of like software development now.
Right.
Uh,
I
and
have a
I
degree
yeah,
yeah, I have a degree in economics, right? But physically and mentally, I'm hardwired for, you know, the smart guy on a hard labor site, okay?
yeah,
Like, put that pile of shit over there. Put that pile of shit over there. Let's put it and now let's get it up and you guys keep moving. Like that's what I'm hardwired for. Now, I do use my economics and my philosophy when I'm talking about politics. And I did I took a lot of philosophy classes and I really enjoyed them.
yeah.
So yeah, it's more of a personal benefit for me. And I certainly tried to go down a track where I would be working in an office and literally I knew it wasn't for me. I knew it wasn't going to work. So
Yeah. So it is.
I'm so glad that I went to college though.
Yeah,
Though I did kind of feel like just because my grades were decent in high school, the push to get me to go to college may have not been perhaps, and there was a push to get me to go to college by my teachers, not so much by my family. They didn't really care. Um, but that there was a push there that probably is a 50-50 trade-off. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I mean, I went to
yeah,
college. I did it.
yeah. That's I'm kind of in the same boat. It's like, well, if I knew what I knew now and how I
Right.
could get to my career without college, like I'd be great. But I don't know, you know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I couldn't have known what I know now then. And so I'm glad I went to college in some ways. Like there's definitely stuff I learned there. I've met my wife there too, so that's nice. But like that, but there are a lot of ways I'm like, well, I didn't really need to do that to be in like the career I'm in now. And everything I've learned like since college has been like, oh, there's just a ton of free resources out there for you to be able to learn like a lot of different careers.
Yeah.
And after a certain point, most employers do not care.
You
Like,
can
it
always
just
learn
doesn't
coding,
matter.
right? Just fall back on the
That's,
coding.
I mean, that's basically what I'm doing. It's kind of what I fell into. Like, I'm not doing the development. I do like kind of related stuff though. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. Guys, I don't know, Kevin. It's this was a good long show. I had a blast.
yeah.
But I think it's been going since like 4 in the morning, 5 in
Yeah,
the
no,
morning.
it feels like forever. I didn't get to like. Can I share one piece of positive news? I'm gonna leave
Sure.
this with everyone. Chicken wing prices are now below their pre-pandemic levels.
It's a miracle. The supply chain is saving itself. Guys, it's
Just in time for football season.
woo.
One bit. There's so much negative news out there. Chicken wings
I
are now
you were
cheaper
gonna
than
go
they
with
were
fake news on that one. I get it. No, that's good news. That is good news, guys. Chicken wing. And look, I do see signs of the supply chain correcting itself. I still see massive waits for parts sometimes, but other times we're starting to get back to where we can find things faster. And look, I'm always try to be optimistic. Occasionally I get the government response to COVID put me in one of the most pessimistic. Not that I didn't laugh about it, right? But I was very pessimistic about where we were heading. And that probably the most pessimistic I've ever been in my life. And so now maybe we'll come out of this and we'll be okay.
Hope so. All right. Well, on that note, we'll end the show. Thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate y'all being here. Glad you enjoyed the show, Shelly. And yeah, have a good night, folks.
We'll see you later.